the theme was High Flyers, and as has been mentioned already, that I'm very involved in flying the airplane. And I found a lovely article about aviation in Africa. It's very appropriate to your whole theme for today. And this whole exercise with kites ties in with my thinking and with the whole concept of what your regional and what the company is trying to do. And it's so symbolic, this kite flying. And 2 points struck me about the kite flying out there. And the first is, if you pick up the newspaper, you listen to the radio, you talk to people who are failing, they'll fill you with the doom and all the terrible things and how bad things are and how bad conditions are and so on. And now you're going to ask me, now what on earth has that got to do with kites? And you noticed out there two things. Everybody was struggling. They were holding the kite and wasn't going anywhere. Because the height that the kite can get to is dependent on the strength of the wind against it. So when people tell you things are tough out there, that's where you're going to fly higher than them. And the other thing that struck me with people out there, who got some decent height out of their kite? It was those who were running the fastest. If you put in some energy and ran a little bit faster than the others, then you got some height for that kite. And that absolutely ties in with your way of doing business and your whole life in this industry. There was one other thing that made me think of this aviation in Africa and flying. And long, long ago, there was a fantastic pilot, his name Eddie Rickenbacker, and he made a statement that is also very true. And it also applies to you and the motivation that gets you going. And he said that aviation is proof that given the will, we have the capacity to achieve anything. And really, to a large extent, you people in this organization have achieved miracles. You've achieved the impossible. And for that I must thank you, because when I go out there, wherever I go, everybody knows the name Avroy Shlain. And I've had some very funny incidents through the years, but I've got to thank you, because it's my name out there, and I'm much happier to hear good things about it than bad things. So you've created quite a miracle in the impossible, in that everybody knows the name. Also, in creating the impossible, I must thank Louisa, creating an organization like this. Thank you, Louisa, for inviting Beryl and myself to join you and all that. But it's also quite incredible, and it takes me back in history, because what you girls are achieving in individual areas, I can remember the days when we prayed to achieve that as the whole company. And so when I think back on those years, and I discussed with Louisa, and Louisa said to me, would I come along and would I talk with you people today? She asked me to do three things. The one was to talk to you about the history of the company. That's a 2-day lecture. And then she wanted to know about success in the direct selling world. That's another 3 days. And then how to be a good leader, and that's a 3-week course at university. So in the next 40 minutes, we're going to cover all of that. And it's quite something to be here, Beryl and myself, we come along, and there's some people that we've worked with from more than 30 years ago. And it takes us back to 1973, when this company was formed. And life was very, very different in those days, in 1973. And we came back, I worked for a very big American organization, and they moved Beryl and myself and our daughter to Australia. And when we left that company, we chose to come back to South Africa. And we came back, and in this country at that time, there were at least 60 cosmetic companies in existence. There were companies that had been selling here for half a century already. They'd been here for 50 years. There were companies that had research and development laboratories with 30, 40, 50 chemists working in them. And against groups like that, we decided that we were going to start a direct selling cosmetic company. And direct, besides the fact that it was a new cosmetic company, direct selling in 1973 was almost unknown. I think Tupperware was just about the only thing that could be considered direct selling in South Africa in 1973. And we took this decision that we were going to start a direct selling cosmetic company. And there were a lot of people that we had worked with in the past, friends of ours, people that we knew, and they had a dilemma. There were two thoughts. When they said, what are you going to do? And we said, we're going to start a direct selling cosmetic company. And the dilemma was, is this man mad or is he stupid? You know, because who's going to compete with these multi-million-dollar international organizations that have been going for so long? But we were very confident because we were well financed. We had 3,000 rand in those days. Even if you convert that to what it is today, I want to tell you, it wasn't a lot of money. It wasn't a lot of money. But we were very fortunate because prior to going to Australia, I had worked for a big American company, and I worked well with a lot of people who were starting their own businesses. There were companies that were starting packaging, manufacturing, they were manufacturing cosmetics, and I helped them to start their companies. And there's a very good saying, be kind to the people on the way up, because you don't know who you're going to meet on the way down. And when Beryl and I came back from Australia with this enormous sum of 3,000 rand, it wasn't exactly a lot of money with which to start a direct selling cosmetic company. But all of those people that we had worked with in the past, they remembered that we had helped them when they started. And every single one of them that I'd helped in the past helped us. They gave us credit which was ridiculous. Even the bank gave us money that without security. We had people producing bottles and things like that and delivering to us. We had people we worked with on developing formulas, and they assisted with us, and they didn't charge. They said to us, one day when you've got money, you can make good. And I want to tell you, a lot of those people are still supplying you today, and certainly in the 27 years that I was involved, those people still did business with us because they were loyal to us and we stayed loyal to them. And the task, with the money that we had available and the assistance that we got in those days, we started with 12 products. That's, when you think of going out today with that catalogue that you've got, that monthly newsletter, it's a whole book. It's endless what you've got to offer the consumer. And our people who started selling in 1973, we had 12 products. There was a men's deodorant and an aftershave lotion. There's a woman's eau de toilette and a deodorant, and the rest was skincare. And those were the 12 products that we had when we kicked off in 1973. But we didn't start a company and have stock and start selling. It took 4 or 5 months from when we started in July to register the company, to develop the packaging. What do you call the product? What are the formulas? But we knew that we had to do something special. And the one special thing that we did was we created for the first time ever a product especially for harsh climates. Today, a lot of companies are putting sun filters into the product and so on. But we in 1973 we created a first. We created a product especially for harsh climates. And Ben's Coupe, as the CEO of my last company, all of a sudden I was driving a Volkswagen. And from our offices in Blairgowrie, when we started the first 3 months, we didn't even have an office. Inside our bedroom, we had a desk, and that's where I worked from until eventually, in the latter part of '73, we rented some offices in Blairgowrie. We didn't have money for furniture. I bought some wood, and fortunately I'd learned to do some carpentry, and I made the desks. And we had one telephone line with 2 extensions. And if anybody phoned, if I answered the phone and they said, could they speak to the accountant, which was Beryl, I'd say, "Skakeli dear, I'll transfer the call." Then I would click on the phone so that they would think there was a real switchboard. And then Beryl would answer the phone the other side. We couldn't let them know how small we were. And the first sales that we made in '73 was mainly to friends of mine who needed Christmas gifts and so on. We sold the eau de toilette or the aftershave. And those were the first sales. And then we had this little kit. Beryl and I were trying to remember the color of the kit, that first kit. It was purple or something like that. It cost 25 Rand, and it had those 12 products in it. And that's how we started. And I literally took that kit, and to anybody I knew, where there was a factory, where there were girls working, I would go there and get permission to talk to the woman about skincare. You've got to cleanse, tone, nourish, moisturize, you've got to do all of these things. And I would sell to these girls. And that's how we started in November, December in 1973. And then one of the girls in the offices there that I called on said, "Oh, I could be your representative to sell to the girls here." Then we had one beauty advisor. And then we had 2. And then I went to another one, we had 3. And today, what have you got? 50,000 of them out there selling. Of you ladies doing an incredible job. And it began to look good as we were making progress. And there were 2 significant things in '74 that were quite dramatic. The first was that a competitor arrived in the direct selling cosmetic world. And the first thing they did to compete with us, we were charging 25 Rand for a kit. And they gave away kits free, thinking, boy, we'll outmaneuver Avroy Shlain Cosmetics. So we did a test. The next 40 people we signed up, 20 of them we sold kits to, and 20 of them we gave kits to. Now this is a critical thing for you to remember. Of the 20 who paid for their kits, a couple of them struggled along. After a few months there were 5, and then there were 4, and then there were 3, and those 3 are probably still with you today. Of the 20 who got the kits for nothing, not one survived. If there is no commitment, you're not going to get anywhere. And don't be tempted to give your kits away, because if those people you talk to are not committed, they're not going to do anything. The other catastrophe, and most of you are not old enough to remember it, in '73, '74, worldwide there was a phenomenon in pyramid companies. And there was a company called Holiday Magic. And Holiday Magic made a few people very rich and a lot of people very poor. And when we were just getting off the ground as a direct selling company, Holiday Magic was here and it blew up, giving a terrible name to the direct selling industry. But what happened was I knew some of the guys who had got involved in Holiday Magic. And we were a new company. At that stage we had about 50 salespeople. And Holiday Magic had 6,000 people registered and no stock. We had 40 or 50 people and stock. So I met with the Holiday Magic people to see, could we get married? but they were a morally dishonest company, and there was no grounds for the marriage. And we sat and talked endlessly, and we couldn't. But the guys that I talked with said to me, they're going to give me a gift, and the gift is how to grow the company. And the way to grow the company is to recognize and give recognition to people. To have meetings just like this, where you can train and motivate and recognize people, and you will grow the company. And we took that advice. And it was quite interesting because we were terribly inexperienced. We weren't like Louisa or Maria here to organize a meeting of this nature and get people together. And the first meeting we were going to have, we struggled. We had 60 people said, and we had a tiny office. It was about the size from here to that table. And we were going to have our first meeting ever. And 60 people said, they're coming. And we hired chairs. And we put out these 60 chairs. And we put out some scones. And we didn't have cream or jam. But we put out scones. And the meeting was scheduled to start. And we waited. And we waited. And we waited. And 3 people arrived. I think it was Madge Wallace was the woman who arrived with her 2 daughters, and if I'm not mistaken, they probably still sell today. But we had a sales manager at the time, and he said to me, you've only got 3 people here, don't be sad, give it your best shot. Pretend you've got this 1,000 audience and give it your best. And that's what you've got to remember. When you're talking to one person out there, whether you have an opportunity to have an opportunity meeting with a lot of people, or whether you talk to one potential salesperson, you give it your best shot. And so we learned about the meetings. Well, you also learned a very important thing, which when we talk about growing in the direct selling industry, when you have functions like this, when you are trying to get people to come to the meetings, don't do it for nothing. Because something that costs nothing has no value. And you can organize an evening meeting and some big TV thing crops up and people don't come. But if you've charged them, they're going to come. You can give them a gift to a greater value than what they pay, but you need to get commitment from people to come to your meetings. And so we learned about meetings and how to make them interesting. And we had some very amusing incidents because we were amateurs. We knew nothing about this. But to make the meetings interesting, sometimes the girls would organize a fashion show. And I'll never forget how embarrassing it was. They had amateurs as well in the fashion show. And we went along to this function, and it was a Pretoria function in the early days. And they had this young guy who was doing the men's clothing. And he marched up and down with this, and as he got there, he swung this coat, and it landed over his head. And he was in this thing, trying to get out of this thing. And Bill now, we were under the table. We just couldn't face this lot. But at least there were people there. They were amused. We could then talk about products. We could talk about opportunities. And we could recruit, and we could train, and we could motivate. But we learned also that in the growth of people, and the growth, we needed the momentum. We needed to make people realize, as you've seen here today, how good you are and what the potential is, and that the impossible can be achieved. And in developing these functions, like today you've got High Flyers, we developed a whole series of meetings and a whole series of themes. And there was something behind the theme. It wasn't just a name, what do you call today? And we had reasons for the themes and names and involvement. For example, in the cosmetic world, the month of January, most cosmetic companies write it off. They think people got gifts of cosmetics in December and they're going to change them in January, and they've got no money left, so January's a write-off. So a lot of companies have got only 11 months in the year. And we decided that January has to be promoted. And the very first time we did that, we developed promotion, and I think we called it Candy Day. Candy Day was the big day. And we had as a theme song that Sammy Davis Jr. song, The Candy Man Can. Get a hold of it, get onto the internet and get the song. And Frank Sinatra sings it beautifully, Sammy Davis Jr. sings it, The Candy Man Can. And if he can, you can. And, you know, in those days we tried, and it was fantastic, this January thing, because that big day wasn't just, oh, on the day you get out and run. We took the office staff, whatever office staff we had, and we broke it into teams. So you had the managing director, the marketing manager, the general manager, everybody, then took people from the office, and we linked them to people in the field. And they met early in January, and they talked about this thing, the Candy Man Can, so can you. And the orders had to be in on Candy Day about the 25th of January. And nobody set any rules or anything, but on that day, I remember Beryl used to do lasagna and spaghettis and all that because the orders had to be in by midnight. And let me tell you, at midnight, every person who worked for the company was there. Not because we told them to be, because the spirit was there, because the morale was there, because they wanted to know how their people did in the field, and how did those guys out there do in the middle of nowhere. And I can remember, if you think of it, we had Ndambi Nakoya, she's still with the company, in Namibia, near Oshakati. You've never even heard of these places, doing R500,000 in a month. You know, this was the enthusiasm that you got because the Candy Man Can, so can you. And we had those incredible days. We had to make people realize how good they were and how good this company was and what we were doing. We had the one year, the theme was a cut above the rest. And everybody, the music that you could tie in with that. One that I really loved, and we really went to town on, you've heard Jonathan Livingston Seagull. And we did a whole audio visual to go with the talk that we did on Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Because, you know, seagulls are generally, they're walking down the beach and they're scrounging. But those, if you know the story of Jonathan Livingston Seagull, he wants to fly like a hawk. He wants to be, and the whole theme was how you could really achieve so much. If you set your mind to it and you worked at it, you could achieve these things. And then as we grew and we developed, and it became a real fun business, the one theme that Beryl came up with was fun, fame, and fortune. And I can see some of the ladies who've been with the company for longer than I was are nodding their heads and remembering fun, fame, and fortune. And the fun came, besides the meetings and the enjoyment of getting involved in the company, we were the very first company to start with international incentives in this country. And the very first one that we did was about 1974, and I think we took 27 people to Mauritius. In later years, we used to hire a jumbo. The one year we hired a jumbo to go to South America, to Brazil. We hired a jumbo. It was fantastic. I was the captain of a jumbo. I could pick up that mic and I could say what I liked to whoever I liked. It was fantastic. And in fact, the jumbo wasn't enough. Some people had to go on the second plane. And we bought more air tickets in this company than any other company in this country. And we had such a good relationship with SAA. We bought so many tickets from SAA. The one year, we had the select group after England were in Paris, 50 of us. And there was a strike at Orly Airport. I can see heads nodding. SAA felt so strongly about this company, they diverted a jumbo to another airfield to pick us up. That's how important we were to them. And with that came fame as well as the fun. And in this country there was a non-listed company award for a number of years. And that was any company that wasn't registered, that wasn't on the stock market, was viewed. Company like BMW, which is not on the stock market. And we were one of 5 finalists in that non-listed company award because we appear to be such a good, well-run, fantastic organization. And with that came image. As we built our own organization, and as we moved from Legari, we moved to Randburg, and then we moved to Kramerville, and we had 1 building, and then we had the next building we took, and then we had 3 buildings altogether, till eventually we moved to the magnificent buildings that you have in the Midrand today. And also what happened in that growth and development, from the 12 products that we had to start with, we got to the stage we had over 400 different products. We had our own factory, we had our own research and development laboratories, and we had connections with the Swiss laboratories where we developed the very first ever cell therapy product, not just in South Africa, but anywhere in the world. That's your new cell range, which is selling. But what happened was at that stage, we were recognized as the #1 direct selling cosmetic company in South Africa. And today you have tremendous momentum from those years. And what you have to do, you people, is you have to capitalize now on the momentum that you have. Because now you're a key company, recognized as one of the best in the country, and you're in an incredible industry. You're in the direct selling industry. And what makes it even better is within the direct selling industry, you're in the best part. You're selling beauty products. And, you think of selling insurance, selling life policies, or selling security doors, compared with selling cosmetics. Everybody wants to look better, smell better, be more sensuous, more sophisticated. Everybody does. And that's what you are. You're doing that in an industry. The other thing is, right now, and when I started, I talked about how high does a kite fly. Depends on the strength of the wind against him. When you get out there, don't let people who are negative depress you. Don't let them tell you how bad things are out there and how many people are out of work. Because bad times for the direct selling industry are good times. Because there are more people out there who either need work or they're working and they need to supplement their income. So bad times like this are good times in this industry, and you must capitalize on it. And you have a wonderful opportunity, because it's not as if you're out there seeking to just earn commission. What you're doing is you're giving other people an opportunity to grow and to live a better life than they're living right now. That is something that you can give them. And what makes that even more magnificent is that by doing good, you're doing well for yourself. And if you can grow them, and they can grow and live a better life, you're going to benefit from that. You're going to live in a better home. You're going to have better holidays. Your kids are going to go to better schools. But I have to tell you that there's no magic wand. It's not going to just happen because you're in a good company, in a good industry. And I go back many years, even before the start of Avroy Shlain Cosmetics, I worked for a big American company. They had 7 divisions in South Africa. And the one that I was running was doing the best. And one of the other managers came to my office and he said to me, what is the secret? And I'll never forget this, because he expected a magic wand. You're going to wave this, and all of a sudden his division is going to do as well as mine. Well, it doesn't happen like that, because you have to work. And I've seen this so often. People have brilliant ideas, lovely concepts, terrific opportunities, but they don't get anywhere when they realize that they have to work. And you've got to get off your backside and do something. You've got to actually. And I learned very through a completely different view in life, that everything in life is a trade-off. And it's a funny example that I give you. I had a tiny little boat that I used to go bass fishing. And I could take this down to the water and I could push it in the water and I could go off on my own. But if the weather got rough, this little boat was too small. So I got a bigger boat, which was much more stable on the water, but I couldn't put it in on my own. So everything in life is a trade-off. And what you have to remember is you've got to work. This industry is marvelous. It creates wonderful opportunities, but you have to work. And something that I learned from one of our area distributors, she said to me, the road to success is a toll road. You've got to pay your dues. So the secret here is to get out there and do something. And it's simple. It may not be easy because you've got to work, but it's simple. You've got to recruit, you've got to train, and you've got to motivate. And if you do that, you're going to be successful. You've got to live this business to the nth degree. You've got to really believe it, you've got to love it. And right now, I'm involved in a different business. I sell a little cooking system called a cob. And my son-in-law sells a product called a cob muff. Now, do you know what earmuffs are? You know what cob muffs are? Cob muffs are what you put on your ears when I arrive because I talk about the cob all the time. So you've got to live this business 24 hours a day. Everybody you talk to is a potential client or a potential recruit. And when you get a lead, and the lead is 1,000,000 miles away from you, you must give it to somebody who can develop that lead. Don't hold it and try to develop something beyond your grasp. We used to work to what we called sweet core people. And what you will find is if you're the kind of person, you're all sitting up here, if you've got a lead, a cousin, a sister, an aunt, or somebody in Cape Town, can you really effectively motivate them? Now, you may be able to do that, and there may be benefits. But if they worked with a good area distributor in Cape Town, they do better. And if what we found is the people who gave those leads and who were sweet core people, they got feedback and they got back. They could reap what they had sown. They were sweet core people and they got responses to that. So to be a good leader, you've got to do all of these things. You've got to work, you've got to be there. But you don't want to be a good leader because a good leader creates followers. You want to be a great leader because a great leader creates leaders. And what you need is to create leaders who will create other leaders who will continue to lead other people. They'll go out and they will grow your business for you. And in dealing with all of these people, one of the things that you have to remember is that the image you portray is everything that you do. Now, you want to be a good leader, you can't do some things right and some things not so good. Everything you do has to be right at the top of the scale. And I had a wonderful, wonderful example of how that applies. And I go back about 30 years ago. I had a nephew living with me, and he was one of these way out kids, wore a long grey coat like kids do at that stage 30 years ago. He was a keen photographer. And one morning, I came into the office, and my secretary was in panic because some of you may remember there was a Bureau of State Security boss. Anybody remember? I see some heads nodding. And they had been to the office to ask who was driving a little Volkswagen and the registration which belonged to the company. And my nephew was driving that car. And I thought, what does boss want? So I put out the feelers to all his friends, where's my nephew? Where's Darryl? Eventually we found him, I called, Darren, what were you doing at sunrise this morning that the boss is looking for you? Oh no, he says, I was doing some photography. What was he photographing? Caught his imagination. There was a store, and it said, there was a big sign painted on it which said, our name is your guarantee of quality. And the paint was peeling. Now, I see some people are internalizing this. Who's going to accept that their name is quality when the paint is peeling? And he saw this, and that's what he photographed. But what he didn't realize was behind the shop was Eskom. And the police thought he was photographing Eskom to go and bomb it. You know. But anyway, for me it was a wonderful example. The image that you portray now as managers is dependent on everything that you do. As managers, a key thing again that I learned in life is you have to think of those people out there. Your focus must not be on the money you're going to make. The money you're going to make is the byproduct. If you look after those people, the bigger they grow, the bigger you will grow. We used to say this, the bigger you grow, the bigger we grow, the bigger we grow, the bigger you will grow. And your interest must be in finding the very best people out there that you can and doing your very best to grow those people. If you show the interest in others, then your business will develop. And so, in 41 minutes, 41 years. I'll leave you with just a few thoughts. The first was, as Rickenbacker said, you can achieve the impossible. The second thing is, you must be creative. And I have a lovely example. Who's heard of purple cows? Has anybody ever seen a purple cow? Can you imagine you're on a little boat on the river and you're with friends and there's a field with the most magnificent cows and they're all white, and you say to everybody, come and look at these cows, and everybody comes up, oh, they're beautiful. And then the boat goes along and you say, there's another field and it's got beautiful cows, and you say, hey, come and look at these, and you come up and you look and there's a whole lot of white cows, exactly like the last field. And everybody looks at them, very nice. And then the boat goes along and there's another field with white cows. And you say, come and look, and everybody's going to say, you know, we've seen them already. Can you imagine you're driving along and you say, come and look, there's some purple cows. Everybody's going to come along. So the second thing is be creative. Do things differently. Different approach to different people. As we've said, the third thing is a critical one. Be more interested in the growth of others. Be interested in the development of other people. And finally, have fun and make some money. And the fun in this business has always been there. And what I've learned and what I've heard, because we're still in touch with a lot of people, is since Daisy has taken over control of the company, that fun has been reinstated to a large extent. And it's there. So right now, folks, you're in the right place, with the right company, at the right time. Have fun and make some money. Thank you.